Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time it's another Big Finish monthly adventure, Project Twilight. Okay, we'll start off with my synopsis, my plotline of this story. The Doctor and Evelyn arrive in modern-day Earth and come across a man being attacked outside a casino. What follows is the Doctor and Evelyn meeting up with Amelia Dory and Reggie Mead, who are people with a condition the Doctor wants to help cure. A worker, Cassie, is befriended initially by Evelyn, and it's eventually revealed Amelia and Reggie are vampires, genetically augmented as such by a First World War experimentation group called Project Twilight. On the hunt for them is Nimrod, the Doctor who created the vampire's condition, and has, to keep track of them, become a variation of one himself. The Doctor's history and prejudice shines through initially about the vampires, but resolves to cure them of their affliction. Amelia has actually duped the Doctor, however, as she's used the Doctor's experiments to create a virus that would turn humans into vampires. Cassie becomes the first experiment, and after killing Reggie, is conflicted with who she has become. Nimrod and the Doctor finds humans have been genetically grown to create a blood farm to feed the vampires, which Nimrod blows up along with the casino. Amelia is about to release the virus, but the Doctor stops her and they fall into the Thames. The Doctor is pulled out by Evelyn, again by the Tower of London, which Evelyn comments on. Amelia is nowhere to be seen. Cassie is taken to Norway to allow her to figure out what she does next, and Nimrod has been tasked by his boss to find her. Okay, that's your plot synopsis. Let's just go through some of the characters in this story and give my opinion on them. We start off with the Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker. I think we've come to the stage where Colin Baker's now playing the empathetic and slightly vulnerable Sixth Doctor that I think he wants to play, because he's become a lot more rounded. There is still a couple of tactless barbs that he does in this one, particularly towards Evelyn, but Evelyn seems to have smoothed his rough edges quite a bit. And it's really good, the fact that the Doctor is showing his very big empathetic side. You saw elements of it in the TV series, but this Doctor's a lot more empathetic and a lot more rounded than he certainly was in this TV series. And the fact the Doctor beats himself up about the fact that he didn't figure out the vampires situation is an interesting tact. Colin Baker, as always, doesn't put a foot wrong with what he gets with the story. He's acting his socks off, and you can see why the Sixth Doctor has been completely rehabilitated on Big Finish. His pairing with Evelyn is sublime. The two of them are just like two older people just bouncing off each other, and that kind of rapport you get with people of similar outlooks in life potentially. It really does work well, and I think it's a great pairing, and Colin Baker just seems to be elevated with the bounce off he has with Evelyn. Speaking of Evelyn, Maggie Stables, as always. Evelyn's one of my favourite early companions of the Big Finish monthly adventures, and one of the key reasons for that is because she is so down to earth. The fact that she's still got that tenacity with her is great. It kind of changes the dynamic a little bit, because you've got an older person travelling with the Doctor rather than a young person, so the Doctor can't do his impressionable things as easily and get away with them with Evelyn as he does with anybody else. But there's a great rapport and understanding between the two of them now, and Evelyn is very much willing to do what the Doctor says, but does it in a way of understanding, not in a way of protest like a young person would, and strops. But she does still come to take the Doctor to task when he's not been very forthright in what's happening with the vampires, and doesn't actually like the idea that the Doctor is not telling her all the information. And I think it's really a nice little rapport with Maggie Stables here and Colin Baker. And Evelyn I just love, and the whole relationship she's built with Cassie comes to its head later on, and it's interesting to have that kind of ongoing narrative there. But enough of that for now. You won't know about the rest of it for a couple more years down the line yet. We then have Holly De Jong playing Amelia Dory. Amelia is scheming bad. She's not big bad. She's lived as a vampire for almost 90 years at this point. We're talking about the early 2000s the story's set in. And she's become accustomed to it and actually wants to change the world into her order, because I think she likes the telepathy aspect to get into people's heads that they highlight here. And I think it's quite a nice little dynamic there. She is the more megalomaniac and controlling of the two main vampires we have in this one. Reggie's been the other one. And the ways that she comes across as this soft-spoken woman who wants to find some scientific result dupes the Doctor, which is really nice. And then she turns into this ha-ha-ha cackling woman near the end. Whether she has actually passed on, we don't know. Kind of left up in the open. It's possible she comes back. I can't remember off the top of my head if she does or not, but spoilers if she does. But ultimately, I think it's a nice little role by Holly Dijon, and it's well played. We then have Rob Dixon, played by Reggie Mead. Very tough, rough Cockney man. It is hinted that Reggie wants to kind of emulate the Cray brothers from the 60s in this story, and he does come across as that geezer who won't take no for an answer, and it's Reggie's idea to have the casino, although I think he's got a bit of uncertainty and sensitivity to him, because he does seem to have some doubts at times about what Amelia's saying to him, and he does seem to have a big trust with Amelia, and Amelia seems to tread on that a little bit with Reggie, because Reggie thinks that Amelia has got something for him and cares for him, and Amelia doesn't. She's out for herself a little bit, and the way Rob Dixon plays it is actually really quite nice and really quite fun to see, and I quite like the way it's portrayed. Two more characters here. We've got Nimrod, played by Stephen Chance. He reminds me of the Borat with the voice, and the way that it's very calculating and very, very low voice and very posh low voice, like a kind of evil voice. But actually, he's more of a lackey, as we find out near the time. He's not the be-all and end-all. He is the Doctor, Dr. Abbottson. That was his original name in the story, and he's the one that experimentations on Amelia and Reggie. But Nimrod has been keeping an eye on them, not necessarily killing them, but keeping an eye on them. So maybe it's seen that the Twilight Institute thinks that, you know, they're valuable, they shouldn't be killed, because that's the way they've been portrayed here. It's an interesting way of going about it, an interesting way of doing the story, and I think Stephen Chance takes everything he gets and plays with it quite well, and it's quite fun, and I like the way it's been put across here. I think it works quite well for me. And then we have Cassie, played by Rosie Cavalerio. Cassie Schofield becomes a bit more interesting to the thread and the narrative of the Big Finish monthly adventures and later stories. I won't give too much away, but she's come across as quite a soft-spoken, sweet woman who has abandoned her child to try and get some work and feels bad about that. We don't know the basis behind that at the moment. It's quite a sweet little character that Evelyn takes under her wing. I think it's quite a nice little characterization that's played here by Rosie, and I think it's quite a nice character overall. You do feel for Cassie when she turns, and the fact that she has guilt about the fact of killing Reggie afterwards just shows there's something there that can be harnessed, and the fact the Doctor respects her request to go to Norway to be on her own and to find her own way for a while, and it's really quite nice to see. And overall, I think it's a nice little character, a nice little role overall, and I think it's nicely done. Okay, let's go into the plot, bits and pieces, some bits I quite like about the story. There's a couple of elements that start to come into place to link up for Zagreus, the 50th Big Finish audio drama, later in the series. Zagreus is mentioned for the first time. The Doctor sings a Zagreus nursery rhyme at one point. We've got the link of Cassie, which comes back later. There's also a link to the Mary conspiracy as well, because Evelyn pulls the Doctor out of the Thames in Mary the First time, and she does it again here, round about the Tower of London, which is quite ironic. That's a nice little link between the two. It's interesting how that's all put across. The subterfuge that Amelia has through the first part of the story, where she gets the Doctor to work with her to try and get these samples, these live samples and these experiments working right, is interesting. The dynamic between Reggie's frustration and the way that it all works out is interesting. And yes, it's an interesting story overall, and I think it's quite interesting. The whole fact that the vampires have been put across as being influenced from programmable nanobots is an interesting characteristic. Nanobots is obviously the phrase they use here. The official Doctor Who phrase is now nanogenes, and they find that through one of the other fellow vampires, Eddie, which is latching onto his immune system and changing things. And Nimrod was out to try and kill people and try and reduce the numbers, but he's also there for Amelia because he knows Amelia is dangerous. It's an interesting setup. Reggie does some digging on the Doctor, finds out that he's been with UNIT and doesn't seem to have much more than just the 70s and 80s, so the UNIT dating element comes in here. The back and forth between Amelia and the Doctor is done really well, and I think it's a nice little setup. Putting Evil in danger near the crux of the argument is interesting. Again, except the twist is, of course, that Cassie doesn't kill Evelyn in that room when Reggie's there. She kills Reggie instead, which is interesting. The fact that the telepathy element is there and an intriguing conversation, Amelia does it with both Cassie and Reggie in this story. And yeah, the Doctor references Bram Stoker. Quite an interesting way of putting it across. Overall, I think it's a nice little paced story. It's not too bad. It's only an hour and 30 minutes, and I think the plot's light enough to justify that. I don't think you get another half out of this. I think it's to the point and does what it needs to do. And that's the thing with the audio dramas. Sometimes they can be a little bit longer, sometimes they can be a little bit shorter, but they do tend to be fairly tight to the plot. The music by Jim Mortimer and Jane Elphinstone is very undercutting. The that comes up at times when there's kind of transformation or something to do with the vampires or something to do with the actual way the creatures are and how they're described. It's a nice way of highlighting the tension at times it needs to, but there's very little music in this one. It's very much based on the plot and the sound effects, and the production is directed very well by Gary Russell. I think it works quite good, and it's a nice little story overall for that. And then we have the writers, Cavan Scott and Mark Wright. A nice little combination. I think it does work overall with the whole situation with the story, and it's nicely written, it's nicely paced, as I say. It's not too meaty, but it's not too lean either. It's just about the right pacing and timing for it, and for me it works. It does work as a nice little story, a nice little listen. Overall though, I think I would give a rating, which seems to be what I'm giving most of them, 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how that story works out alongside the other Big Finish order reviews I have done so far. Okay, Project Twilight sits in with 15 other stories at 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. A selection of which are Phantasmagoria, The Marrying Conspiracy, Red Dawn, The Shadow of the Scourge, The Mutant Phase, Sword of Orion, and Dust Breeding. At the bottom is still 3 TARDISes out of 5 for The Land of the Dead and Winter for the Adept, and at the top, with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5, is The Apocalypse Element. That's it from me. Thanks very much, guys, for listening and watching this Big Finish audio review. Leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Leave a comment down below. Do you not like it? Leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, please like it, share it with the hashtag teamstructor, hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out, and keep an eye on the socials because there might be information that comes out that you won't necessarily see on this channel, including the YouTube community tab. I'm back next Sunday at 4 PM GMT with the Matt Smith adventure, The Power of 3, and hopefully we can see you for that review. But until then, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.